Most women will never tell you what truly draws them toward a man, because even they don't fully understand it. Attraction, in its deepest form, isn't a checklist of traits or a collection of charming gestures. It's an unconscious pull, a dance between instinct and awareness, shadow and light. Beneath the surface of words and gestures, something older than civilization speaks. A language written in energy, in presence, in the quiet certainty of being. When a woman feels drawn to a man, it's rarely because of what he says. It's because of what he embodies. The way he moves through the world without rushing to prove himself. The stillness behind his eyes when others panic. The way he holds tension without needing to release it through validation or noise. To her unconscious, that stillness feels like home, not because it's gentle, but because it's grounded. It promises safety through power, not protection through pleading. Attraction begins where words end. The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Seneca spoke of the man who stands calm amid chaos, unshaken, disciplined, inwardly sovereign. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that others will act in ignorance or vanity, yet he must remain uncorrupted. These men weren't trying to be attractive, they were trying to be whole. Yet wholeness, paradoxically, radiates the most magnetic energy of all. Have you ever wondered why a woman tests a man's patience, questions his motives, or retreats when things seem stable? On the surface, it looks like contradiction, but beneath it lies instinct. Her unconscious searching for the man who remains unmoved. She doesn't crave perfection, she craves presence. She wants to know if the man before her will collapse under her storm or remain the eye within it. Because deep down, every feminine heart seeks the masculine stillness that holds the world together. That stillness isn't indifference, it's mastery. It's the man who no longer reacts to every emotional wave, but reads the current beneath it. He doesn't chase reassurance because his worth isn't rented from approval. His silence is not withdrawal. It's a statement of inner command. To the untrained eye, he seems cold, but to a woman attuned to truth, he is fire wrapped in control, the kind that burns clean, not wild. Modern psychology echoes this ancient truth. Carl Jung spoke of the anima and animus, the inner feminine within man and the inner masculine within woman. When these forces recognize each other, attraction is not just physical, it becomes archetypal. A woman doesn't fall for the man himself, but for the mirror of her own unclaimed strength that she sees reflected in him. He becomes the symbol of what her psyche yearns to integrate, the disciplined force that balances her emotional ocean. And yet, most men misunderstand this completely. They believe attraction is earned through gestures, flattery, or constant effort. They overcompensate, offering affection as a transaction, mistaking approval for intimacy. But women feel the truth beneath those actions. They can sense when a man gives from need rather than fullness. The more he performs, the more invisible he becomes. Not because she despises kindness, but because she cannot trust it when it comes from emptiness. True masculine energy doesn't perform, it emanates. It is silent confidence, not loud persuasion. It is the willingness to walk away, not the fear of losing. It is detachment, not disinterest. And when a woman feels that, truly feels it, something ancient awakens in her. Her guard lowers, her breath softens. She leans toward the calm she cannot create on her own. It is not submission, but resonance, the meeting of polarity that life itself depends on. The Stoics would say, control what you can, release what you cannot. But few understand how this applies to love. You cannot control attraction. You can only embody what evokes it, strength without arrogance, clarity without rigidity, compassion without weakness. A man who lives by these principles does not chase, convince, or manipulate. He simply is. And from that stillness, he draws everything meant for him, including the woman who recognizes herself in his presence. In the end, the code of female attraction isn't something to decode logically. It's something to become. It's the art of self-possession, the alchemy of turning chaos into composure, the magnetic power of a man who knows his worth so deeply that he no longer needs to announce it. Attraction is not a game of appearances. It is a ritual of energy exchange, silent, invisible, but unmistakably real. The woman senses before she knows, feels before she thinks. Her intuition reads frequencies faster than logic can interpret. She perceives incongruence instantly, the smile that hides insecurity, the words that try too hard, the gaze that seeks permission to matter. What pulls her closer is not perfection, but coherence. The alignment between a man's actions, his energy, and his silence. A man can wear confidence like a mask, but his inner state always leaks through. If he acts powerful while secretly begging for attention, she feels it. If he says he's calm while his eyes dart with anxiety, she knows. Her attraction is guided not by what she sees, but by what she feels vibrating beneath the surface. The truth is primal. Women are drawn not to men who perform masculinity, but to those who embody peace. The kind of peace that comes from having confronted chaos and survived it. This is why the modern man struggles. He seeks approval before presence, affection before integrity. He confuses being liked with being valued. He believes the more he gives, the more she will stay, not realizing that giving from emptiness breeds resentment. The Stoics warned against this illusion. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it, that matters." In attraction, reaction reveals everything. The man who reacts loses the frame. The man who observes, holds, and chooses his response. He becomes magnetic. The reason is simple. In the dance of polarity, emotion seeks containment. Feminine energy by nature is movement, ever-changing, expressive, spontaneous. Masculine energy is structure, the container that allows emotion to flow safely. When a woman feels that containment in a man's presence, her nervous system relaxes. Her energy begins to flow toward him, not away from him. But if his energy collapses into hers, if he chases, pleads, or over-explains, the polarity dissolves. Safety is lost, and attraction fades like smoke. To master attraction, a man must master stillness, not the absence of emotion, but the control of its expression. The calm sea beneath a raging storm. The silence that doesn't withdraw, but witnesses. This stillness is not born of repression, it's forged through shadow work. Every man carries within him the unhealed boy, the one who sought approval, feared rejection, and mistook love for survival. Until that boy is faced, he will continue to sabotage connection, turning desire into dependence and tenderness into transaction. Shadow work is the process of reclaiming that energy. Jung wrote that the shadow is not evil. It is merely the part of ourselves we refuse to see. The man who meets his shadow stops projecting it onto women. He no longer needs her to validate his worth or soothe his insecurity. He becomes sovereign, emotionally self-contained. And in that sovereignty, attraction becomes effortless. Because nothing is more intoxicating to a woman than a man who does not need her, yet chooses her with full awareness. It is the paradox of polarity. Detachment amplifies desire. Not the cold withdrawal of indifference, but the sacred detachment of freedom. The man who can walk away is the one who can truly stay, not out of fear, but out of choice. His presence says, I am whole with or without you. And from that wholeness, his energy invites rather than demands. She feels drawn to him not because he fills her emptiness, but because he mirrors her potential to become whole as well. In truth, attraction is a mirror. The woman reflects back to the man his level of consciousness. If he is insecure, she becomes distant. If he is grounded, she becomes open. It is not manipulation, but resonance. She can only meet him as deeply as he meets himself. Every rejection, every mixed signal, every disappearing act, it all mirrors his own inner confusion. And when he finally sees that, the game ends. Because he no longer plays to win her, he learns to master himself. So the question isn't, how do I attract her? It's, can I hold my center when her emotions test it? Every moment of attraction is a test of presence. Every emotional storm she brings is an invitation to stay grounded, to stay silent, to stay real. When he learns to do that, attraction becomes alchemy. It transforms from a fleeting spark into a magnetic field that draws what resonates and repels what isn't aligned. A woman's attraction is not born in her eyes, it begins in her nervous system. Before she names what she feels, her body has already answered. It recognizes energy before thought intervenes. When she stands before a man who is internally centered, who does not waver in the presence of uncertainty, something ancient awakens within her. The world slows down. Her words may remain guarded, yet her instincts whisper, here is a man who will not collapse. That feeling is rare, because most men collapse long before they realize it, not through weakness, but through unconscious surrender. They trade their center for comfort, their silence for validation. They enter relationships not as equals, but as seekers of emotional shelter. And when a man seeks shelter in a woman's approval, the polarity inverts. She cannot relax into the feminine because she now feels she must hold him. Her attraction dissolves, not out of malice, but instinct. A woman cannot desire the man she must protect from his own emotions. The Stoics taught that emotion must serve reason, not dominate it. But this does not mean suppression. It means transformation. The fire that burns uncontrolled destroys. The fire that is contained illuminates. A man's emotional energy, when disciplined, becomes charisma. When scattered, it becomes chaos. The difference lies in ownership. The man who owns his fire radiates it. The man who fears it leaks it through neediness, anger, or performance. This ownership is the true essence of masculine polarity, the ability to hold tension without fleeing it. Attraction lives in that tension, the silence before the kiss, the pause before the decision, the unspoken charge between two people who could act, but choose restraint. The feminine yearns for that space, the invisible field where she can safely lose control because he refuses to. But when he breaks that stillness with insecurity or over-explanation, the spell is gone. What was once magnetism becomes noise. Jung understood this through the lens of the animus, the masculine principle within the female psyche. Every woman carries an image of what the masculine represents: order, direction, strength, purpose. She projects this image onto the men she encounters, hoping to find in them the integration she seeks within herself. When a man lives in alignment with his inner purpose, he embodies that archetype, not as fantasy, but as mirror. She feels drawn to him because he reflects the part of her that wants to stand tall, to be guided, to be free. But when a man drifts from his purpose, she senses it instantly. She may not know why her heart withdraws, but her intuition does. She feels it in the subtle way he hesitates, the way his words lack conviction, the way his energy asks for permission to exist. In those moments, attraction fades, not because she wants a tyrant, but because she cannot feel the direction of his soul. To attract, then, is not to pursue, it is to align. The man who stands in alignment with his values becomes gravitational. His words and actions do not compete, they harmonize. He no longer chases because chasing implies lack. He simply moves with purpose, and in doing so, becomes a current others want to follow. This is not arrogance, it is embodiment. The Stoics would call it arete, virtue expressed through action. Jung would call it individuation, the integration of the conscious and the unconscious into one coherent being. And yet, the modern world teaches men to do the opposite, to chase attention, to apologize for their masculinity, to seek love by forfeiting self-respect. But the woman's psyche rebels against that inversion. She cannot admire a man who does not respect himself. Even if she pities him, she cannot desire him. Because attraction does not live in pity, it lives in polarity. When a man understands this, he stops negotiating for affection. He no longer asks, "What do women want?" He begins to ask, "Who am I when no one is watching?" And as that answer deepens, his energy shifts. He speaks less, observes more. He doesn't explain his worth, he embodies it. And the moment he does, attraction stops being something he pursues. It becomes something he naturally evokes. Attraction deepens not through novelty, but through resonance, that subtle recognition between two psyches vibrating at different frequencies, yet harmonizing through polarity. When a woman meets a man rooted in his essence, her body and soul respond long before her intellect can reason why. It is not his looks, his wealth, or his words. It is the invisible gravity of presence. She feels the difference between a man who is trying to connect and a man who already is connected to himself, to his purpose, to the quiet pulse of life that beats beneath ambition. Most men chase connection outward, unaware that attraction begins inward. The ungrounded man seeks the woman to complete him. The grounded man invites her to join him. He no longer needs her energy to feel alive. He is already alive. His vitality flows from inner alignment, not external attention. That self-sustaining energy is what the feminine instinctively reads as strength. It's the energy that says, "You may enter my world, but you cannot define it." This is the essence of masculine containment, the unshakable center around which the feminine can spiral without chaos. It's what the ancients described as logos, and what Jung described as the integrated masculine principle. Reason, not as coldness, but as direction. A woman's attraction is often her psyche's longing to encounter that principle in form. She doesn't desire to submit to the man, but to surrender to the direction that his presence represents. When he embodies purpose, she feels safe to feel. But when he drifts, when his words promise more than his energy can sustain, her attraction falters. The unconscious knows when a man's spirit has no spine. She feels it in the way he hesitates to assert boundaries, the way he apologizes for wanting what he wants. To her ancient instincts, this signals danger, not because he might harm her, but because he cannot hold her. The feminine cannot expand where the masculine will not stand, and so she tests. She withdraws affection, challenges his calm, disrupts his rhythm, not to destroy, but to reveal. Her test is never about control, it is about truth. "Will you remain grounded when I bring the storm?" she asks, not in words, but through behavior. "Can your frame hold me when I lose mine?" Most men fail here, mistaking her test for hostility. They react, defend, argue, explain, proving only that her instincts were right. The test was not about winning, it was about witnessing. to pass is simple but not easy. It requires stillness under pressure, the Stoic's art of ruling the self. Seneca said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That mastery is not found in emotional numbness, but in emotional governance. The man who feels deeply yet chooses his expression deliberately becomes magnetic. His restraint is not suppression, it is sovereignty. His emotions serve him rather than enslave him, and the woman feels that. She relaxes not because he is emotionless, but because his emotions are anchored. Attraction then becomes a reflection of self-mastery. Every feminine pull toward a man is, at the psychological level, her attraction to her own potential for integration. The man she desires mirrors her own dormant wholeness. Likewise, the man drawn to a radiant woman is responding to the reflection of his unclaimed sensitivity and intuition. This is the sacred mirror of polarity, where two unconscious forces meet not to complete each other, but to awaken what was asleep. And this awakening is not gentle. It burns away illusion. It strips performance. The feminine will pull at every loose thread of his inauthenticity until the mask falls. That is why real attraction always involves discomfort. It forces the man into his truth. He cannot fake strength when faced with the feminine's intuition. He must become it. When he does, everything changes. He speaks less but means more. His presence fills the room not through volume but through density, the quiet gravity of someone who needs nothing. The woman, feeling that, softens. Her own guardedness dissolves, for she recognizes the rare energy of a man who cannot be shaken. Attraction is not pursuit. It is the meeting of two forces that have mastered themselves enough to meet without consuming each other. The man who understands this no longer competes for attention. He simply exists in alignment, and existence in alignment is irresistible. Attraction, at its highest level, transcends the superficial language of desire. It becomes a silent recognition between two beings who have faced themselves and survived. The woman senses, perhaps without knowing why, that a man who has confronted his darkness will never fear hers. He no longer flinches before emotion, nor recoils from pain. His steadiness tells her something wordless, yet profound, that the chaos within her can exist safely beside him, without judgment or control. Every woman, in her essence, is a storm contained in grace. She is emotion, intuition, creation, destruction, birth, and renewal, all at once. The man who fears this, who tries to tame or analyze it, loses her immediately. But the man who witnesses, who can hold her wildness without drowning, becomes unforgettable. His strength does not suppress her emotion. It allows her to expand within it. He gives her space to fall apart and still be seen as whole. That is the kind of containment the feminine craves, not control, but safety. Yet this safety is earned only through the man's inner discipline. The stoic and the psychologically mature man are not numb, they are awake. They feel everything, yet remain unmoved by impulse. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind must stand like a cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm, and the raging sea falls still around it. In relationships, this image becomes real. The man is that cliff, the woman the tide. The moment he begins to erode himself to please her waves, both lose their form. But when he stands, patient, unwavering, compassionate, she finds her rhythm around him. Her emotions, once chaotic, begin to flow like music instead of noise. This is the true alchemy of attraction, the transformation of tension into harmony. The man learns that he does not need to chase, correct, or fix the feminine. He needs only to hold space with such depth that her storm softens into surrender. This surrender is not weakness, it is trust. It is the feminine saying, "I can let go now because you won't." And that is the unspoken language of desire, the place where her body responds not to words, but to energy. It's why she feels drawn to men who embody quiet strength rather than loud confidence. The louder the noise, the emptier the signal. Real power whispers. It does not beg to be heard. From the Jungian perspective, this dance reflects the process of individuation. Each lover mirrors the other's path toward wholeness. The feminine challenges the masculine to feel. The masculine challenges the feminine to trust. Through each confrontation, projection, and reconciliation, they burn away illusion until what remains is essence. This is not romance as culture defines it. It is initiation. Every moment of attraction, every conflict, is an initiation into greater consciousness. And yet, the modern man resists this initiation. He seeks comfort instead of growth, validation instead of depth. But true attraction, like true peace, demands discomfort. It asks the man to stand in the fire of uncertainty without reaching for escape. It asks him to feel the urge to fix, to explain, to control, and do nothing. To breathe, to remain. That is where strength is born. That is where the feminine begins to trust again. The woman who meets such a man cannot help but respond. Her guard dissolves because she finally senses what she has been seeking all along. Not dominance, not perfection, but presence. The man who has made peace with himself does not compete with her chaos. He balances it. He doesn't silence her feelings. He grounds them. He doesn't ask for her submission. He inspires her openness. When this polarity stabilizes, attraction becomes effortless. No chasing, no games, no manipulation. Just two forces remembering their original rhythm. The woman feels safe enough to soften. The man feels free enough to stay strong. And in that unspoken harmony, the dance continues. Ancient, eternal, beyond words. Attraction, at its final layer, ceases to be a strategy. It becomes awareness. When a man has walked through every illusion of desire, when he has tasted rejection, disappointment, and ego collapse, he comes to understand that the true secret was never about her. It was always about him. A woman does not fall for a man because he has learned the perfect sequence of words. She falls for the quality of his presence, the quiet energy that says, "I am enough." The world reveres the loud and the flashy, but the feminine psyche kneels before depth. The deeper the man descends into himself, the more grounded his energy becomes. The more grounded he becomes, the safer the woman feels to rise into her fullest expression. This is why the most magnetic men are rarely the most talkative. They are the ones whose silence vibrates with meaning, whose eyes do not wander, whose emotions are steady but alive. They do not withhold affection out of pride. They withhold reaction out of wisdom, because they understand that what cannot provoke them cannot control them. And that mastery, that unbothered certainty, is the purest form of attraction there is. In psychological terms, such a man has individuated. He has integrated the opposites within him: reason and emotion, strength and tenderness, logic and instinct. He has become what Jung described as a self-realized being, one who acts not from the fragmented ego, but from a unified core. Women sense this immediately. They may not know the language of individuation, but their intuition recognizes coherence when it stands before them. This man has faced his loneliness, so he no longer fears solitude. He has walked through rejection, so he no longer clings to approval. He has been humbled by his own mistakes, so he no longer needs to dominate to feel powerful. And paradoxically, that humility makes him irresistible. Because the feminine does not seek the flawless man, she seeks the real man, the one who has been shattered yet remains whole. Every Stoic understood this paradox of strength. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that even emperors bleed and falter, yet must return each day to their duty. Epictetus taught that freedom comes not from possession, but from self-command. These men were not detached monks. They were warriors of the mind. They felt deeply, but refused to be owned by emotion. That is the essence of masculine attraction, to feel everything, but be moved by nothing unworthy of movement. When a woman encounters such energy, something ancient within her exhales. She no longer needs to perform, to persuade, to prove. She simply is. In his presence, her chaos becomes art. Her emotion becomes rhythm. The polarity becomes not a struggle, but a flow. And the man, rather than consuming her light, reflects it. Their connection transcends seduction. It becomes evolution. The modern world calls this chemistry, but it is far more sacred. It is the reunion of masculine consciousness and feminine creation, Shiva and Shakti, Logos and Eros, order and beauty. It is the dance of balance that fuels life itself, but it can only exist when both have faced their shadows, when both have learned to love without needing to possess. The final truth is simple. Attraction dies when attachment begins. When the man seeks to own what inspired him, he suffocates it. But when he allows love to flow through detachment, when he can admire without clinging, give without losing himself, he transcends the game. The woman feels that freedom and responds in kind, because the feminine, above all, is drawn to freedom, disguised as strength. The Stoics called this the virtue of apatheia, not apathy, but serenity. It is the quiet joy of knowing that nothing outside yourself can disturb what is within. The man who embodies this no longer needs to attract. He simply attracts by existing. And that is the code, the silent truth beneath every flirtation, every gaze, every unspoken longing. The woman does not choose the loudest man in the room. She chooses the calmest, the one whose stillness whispers louder than noise, the one whose peace cannot be stolen.